Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video on Gerald Croft in An Inspector Calls. So Gerald Croft is the fiance of Sheila Burling and the son of a wealthy businessman. He represents privilege, power and the conservative views of the upper class in Edwardian Britain. Through Gerald, Priestley explores themes of social responsibility, class differences and gender inequality, showing how people in privileged positions often avoid taking responsibility for others. At first, Gerald comes across as charming, confident and likeable. His background as the son of Sir George Croft, a wealthy industrialist, makes him an ideal match for Sheila, both in social and economic terms. Gerald's engagement to Sheila would benefit both families, which is something Mr. Burling appreciates. However, Gerald's polished exterior hides his flaws. He tends to agree with Mr. Burling's selfish capitalist views, and he shows little awareness of the struggles of working class people. He says, "You couldn't have done anything else," in Act 1. Early on, Gerald supports Mr. Burling's decision to fire Eva Smith, showing that he shares Mr. Burling's belief that business profits come before people. One of the most revealing parts of Gerald's character is his affair with Eva Smith. Known to him, as Gerald claims, he helped Daisy out of kindness by giving her money and a place to stay. But it's clear he was also using her for his own pleasure. While Gerald may have felt some affection for Daisy, he ultimately leaves her when their relationship becomes inconvenient. This reflects the lack of power that women like Daisy had compared to wealthy men like Gerald. He says, "I didn't feel about her as she felt about me," in Act 2. Gerald admits he didn't love Daisy, even though she loved him, showing how he treated her feelings casually and without long-term commitment. Gerald's actions highlight the power imbalance in their relationship. He had the freedom to leave without consequence, while she was left in a vulnerable position. Gerald's reaction to Inspector Goole is also revealing. Unlike Sheila, who feels guilty about her role in Eva's suffering, Gerald is more focused on defending his actions and proving that the inspector might not be real. When he finds out that there may not have been just one victim, he uses this as an excuse to brush off the events of the evening, showing that he's more concerned with protecting himself and his reputation than facing the consequences of his actions. He says, "Everything's all right now, Sheila. What about this ring?" Gerald tries to resume his engagement with Sheila as if nothing's happened, which shows he hasn't learned or changed from the night's events. This quote shows that Gerald doesn't truly understand what Priestley is trying to communicate through the inspector, that everyone has a responsibility to care for others. Gerald's character represents the wealthy upper class in Edwardian society, early 20th century Britain. His attitudes and actions reflect how people of his status felt entitled to use their power without considering the effects on others, especially people from lower classes like Eva Smith. Priestley uses Gerald's story to show how men like him could use their wealth and privilege to take advantage of vulnerable people, often women, without facing any real consequences. In 1945, when the play was written, British society was changing after the World Wars. Priestley wanted to highlight the need for social responsibility and equality, as people were beginning to demand more fairness and compassion in society. Gerald's attitudes represent an outdated way of thinking that Priestley believed needed to change for society to progress. Priestley uses Gerald to emphasize the idea that people should reflect on their actions and take responsibility for others. Gerald's failure to change, even after the inspector's visit, shows how the upper class often ignores its responsibility to society. Unlike Sheila, who learns from her mistakes, Gerald is quick to dismiss the events once he believes there was no real victim. He would rather move on with his life than face any consequences. As he says, "What about this ring?" This line shows that Gerald is eager to return to his old life and resume his engagement with Sheila without considering his actions and how it affected others. Through Gerald Croft, Priestley criticises the wealthy upper class for ignoring the well-being of those less fortunate and avoiding change. Gerald's character highlights how the privileged often refuse to take responsibility for their actions, reinforcing Priestley's message that social progress requires everyone to care, not just for themselves. Gerald's inability to change after the inspector's visit makes him a reminder of what needs to change in society to create a fairer, more compassionate world.